Oh boy, this is gonna be one touchy subject. Hey everybody, this is me, Adriel, and welcome back to another video of Adriel Talks, the segment where I give my opinion on a certain subject and you get angry in the comments if you can. Now, as I talked previously before, this was supposed to be the second episode, and if you can forgive my squealing. Today we're gonna talk about diversity in films and series because this envelops everything about it. Now I'm gonna right out of the bat, I'm just gonna say diversity is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a diverse cast for a story, movie, or TV series. There's nothing wrong with it at all because because our current world is very diverse. We have a bunch of different people, a bunch of different cultures, races, languages, and so on and so forth. Now, there's also nothing wrong with having a cast that is completely of one race, because you have a bunch of movies and TV series that actually don't have a diverse cast. For example, there's series about Vikings and Danish people, and there's all a completely white cast because, well, Vikings were all like that. They would come from Denmark, and if you see Denmark, it's completely full of white people, and even at the beginning. But I'm gonna first talk about the great impact that diversity has had in these days on film, because normally back in the day, movies weren't as diverse. If you see movies from the 1950s and 40s and 60s, they usually weren't very diverse. I remember seeing the old historical movies like the 300 Spartans, and there was the Roman one, Cleopatra, and those old 1960s movies. There was a completely full white cast, and I mean Egyptians are very varied. They're not all black people, and they're not. It's a whole mess. But these days we have tremendous actors from many different cultures who have brought a lot to the table, like the late Chadwick Boseman, who had a great impact on young people. And before I say I am free, I didn't really feel that much of an impact because I really didn't see like as much of a thing. Many people did because, well, it's been too long since the industry of superheroes is mostly dominated by white people because the actual genre started in the 1930 something with the creation of Superman, who was a white male, and so on. Batman, Spider-Man, Captain America, all a bunch of white people, and then came Black Panther, who was one of the first black superheroes, and it's a great character because he's not an African American, he's an African, which makes it even better. And the interpretation of these characters, I actually feel like it's great for the youth to see, like, look, there can be heroes that look just like you. That type of diversity is great, and it's well done. I believe it's really well done. The character of Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, it will be remembered. Rest in peace, King T'Challa. And right now, I feel like it's a bit of a sense because I'm Puerto Rican, so I have a mixed heritage from the native Taino people who inhabited the island. Then the Spanish came and conquered and killed all of them. Then they introduced African people, and it just got very, very mixed. And nowadays you see Puerto Ricans, and you have white Puerto Ricans with blue eyes and yellow hair, and you also have Puerto Ricans who are basically black. So you have all of these in an island that's super tiny, just 3 million inhabitants, and we are so varied, which is why I feel like I speak more freely than if I was a white guy, because, well, I would be very much pursued and hunted down because apparently being white is bad. I don't know why, but no, no race deserves to be shamed. Like Asian people, African people, what even white people, they don't deserve to be pursued, persecuted, or shunned because of what they did or possibly did in the past. But I'm getting off the track, so let's go back to movies. So, great characters. I feel like it's great addition that people are implementing more diverse casts into movies. However, you have to do it right. Because I am what you would call a purist for historical accuracy. Now, historical accuracy. I'm someone who is a big fan of history. I love that. I love that about history. And when I see a historically based movie or a time period based movie or TV series, I am constantly on the lookout if they're historically accurate. For example, by the way, I'm just going to tell that sometimes there are characters that are historically inaccurate to the setting, but if the story is good, if the story if the story actually feels great to the time period and it's not just this self-inserted uh, propaganda, I'm just gonna call it like that, and then I actually have no problem. I can pardon the slight historical inaccuracies. They don't really ruin a film, like tiny historical inaccuracies, because most historically based movies are very inaccurate in some either costume design, weapons, language, and so on. By the way, we've seen this all the time in medieval movies. They painted like the peasants are dirty and grungy, and just a bunch of people with mud up their noses. No, the medieval period was very colorful, but apparently the TV industry and film industry is afraid of color. I don't know. Now, sometimes I feel like they just don't really plan it on. When you're dealing with fantasy, you can be a bit more lenient because fantasy you can put up whatever you want because fantasy is not like something that really happened. So you can have a bunch of different characters and oh my god, all again. You can have a bunch of different characters on a setting that is fantasy without the issues of historical accuracy because fantasy. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Now, another part of diversity in movies and media and bunch of other things, it's what I call token diversity. You see, characters that are put there for the sake of diversity. This happens most of the time on horror movies for some reason. It's like one of the biggest cliches. You have the tall jock, you have the athletic black guy, you have the Asian, and you have a bunch of characters that are just basically stereotypes. And stereotypes on film are also used a lot, like a lot. And sometimes they do it okay, they do an okay job, but most of the time they just, I don't know. I don't watch horror movies that much, but yeah, they sure as hell need to work on that. But then comes the true token diversity, which are characters that are put there just for the sake of it. Like, just to say, hey, look, we are diverse, we like everybody, when in reality they're just trying to manipulate everyone into buying their film. Like what happened to John Boyega. If you see the posters of Star Wars, they put Finn like he was gonna be a major character, and in reality he just was relegated to screaming Rey for 50 to 77 hours. Man, Disney sure dropped the ball on the newest trilogy. Now, this The problem I have personally is when they changed previously established characters and they turn them into another let's say race, or sometimes even gender, because diversity also comes in female and male and female representation as well. But that it's gonna be for another day. We're gonna talk about that issue sometime later. But this is to diversity. Okay, the first offender that I knew about, like to my brief knowledge, was actually the TV series of The Flash for the CW show. And even to this day, I still don't like the Iris that they show. The actress, I have no problem with it. She's a very good actress, but the problem I have is with the character Iris, the way she's been handled, and good lord, no bueno, no bueno at all. Now, of course, people are saying, oh, this is a modern era, you should be more. Yes, 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 I've heard it all before. They say, oh, it doesn't hurt to have diversity. Yes, I know, but we're talking about characters that have been established since the 1940s, 60s, 70s, and as I said before, I'm a purist for historical accuracy, but also to the true essence of characters. Now, characters who have had various versions over the years, I really have no issue with them. For example, you can cast anyone to play the Martian Manhunter because he's a shapeshifter and he can be whoever he wants. And I have no issue with that. That's one thing. For example, I saw Miss Marvel, not Miss Marvel, Miss Martian. Oh boy, Miss Martian on the CW with the show Supergirl, and it was portrayed as a black female. And on the show Young Justice, she mostly normally takes a ginger girl, which both versions are okay because she is a shapeshifter and she can have whatever image she wants. Now here's the issue. I have a problem when they change previously established characters for a very long time and then just flip it all because who cares? Diversity wins low. I really have a big issue with that. Well, I don't really hate the idea of changing the race of a certain character as long as you do it okay. But sometimes changing the race doesn't really work. I don't know, sometimes it doesn't really work. Imagine if they put the movie Mulan with an African on the leading role as Mulan, or you have Pocahontas and you put a Mexican as the lead character, or a British person as the lead character. It just doesn't work. Just like my problem with the Little Mermaid or Tinkerbell, I think I saw that they were gonna make Tinkerbell, and I'm like, why? Why? Like, the Little Mermaid live action adaptation is gonna be portrayed by a black female, and I have no problem with with a black female doing a role in a movie. I have no problem with that. The problem I have is that this is a book, a Danish legend, a Danish book that has it's. If you change Black Panther into a white man, people will be outraged. But apparently, uh, taking out white characters is okay because nobody cares about white people. And honestly, that's actually a bit racist against white people. And this is a Hispanic speaking because his my people have been oppressed by white people for so long, and I don't know. I don't. In the camera, I'm seeing myself, and I think I feel a bit weird because I see myself. I don't know if people would consider me white, but I certainly don't. I'm just Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Latino, whatever you want to call me. But yeah, I don't really like this when a white actor does the role of a person who isn't currently their ethnicity. For example, they call it whitewashing. But what would you call it if it's the contrary? Black smudging? I don't know. The problem here with diversity in this subject is that it's a very touchy subject, and not many people are vocal to speak against how everyone's doing, because since, okay, Hollywood is trampling everyone and trying to get race before talent, then it gets messy because you have a bunch of talentless actors or actresses doing roles that could have been done by a more talented and more respected actor. And I'm not talking about the race again, I'm talking about purely talent. Because sometimes they pick actors for their race instead of if they're actually very good. And it will be, and it's just a very complicated issue all around. Like everything it revolves around that if you try to speak it, you're trying not to sound racist, because if you have an opinion these days, apparently that's bad too. Also, sometimes I feel like they just put it just to make people angry, just to make people talk, and I don't know why they do it, because when I see when I see a Disney remake and they change something for the sake of, oh, we have to be more modern, and no, it's the 21st century, but that doesn't mean we're not gonna change things because, oh, 21st century, I'm just gonna make Snow White, I'm gonna make her Chinese because it's the 21st century. No, it doesn't work like that. To basically summarize the theme of racial diversity and apply it into everything, if you use historical context, like if you pull inspiration from the real world, from ours, and you apply it to either a fictional setting or basically a historically inspired theme. I don't know if let me just tell you, I have a movie that it's gonna tell it. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. This is a movie based on the legend of King Arthur. And if you have not read anything about King Arthur, or at least not seeing anything about it, well, King Arthur is a story based on England during the early medieval era. And so, historically accurate, if you do that story, it's pulling from real life. So, as a YouTuber said, real life rules apply, much like in different fantasy settings. For example, Lord of the Rings, or even Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones has a massive world, has a very, very massive world, and you can see where different races are located and how they interconnect with each other. This is also fairly similar to a story I was designing some time ago, which sadly I lost the map, but I have a brief map of one of the regions. I'm just gonna look for it. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. This little map right here, this is the land of Hyacinth. It was a story I was developing some long time ago. And if you see, I'm just trying to look. Okay, this region right here, the land of Ivor. Well, if you would see it like regularly, you would see a bunch of what you would call white people, and the dogs are always barking. And that main region where the story was taking place, it was full of white people or slightly dark-skinned people, I mean, like myself. But if you wanted to see where other races were, you actually had to move farther away on the map. On the desert regions, there were the desert inhabitants, and on the southeast part of the continent was obviously uh, a bunch of other races as well, and a bunch of other fantasy races, because since I was pulling from real life, I was also putting the same content. So, in short terms of words, if you're applying real world elements into a fantasy setting, you have to be advised that also real life rules apply to them, because you just don't suddenly have a bunch of different people on the same setting. It wouldn't make sense if, like, in medieval Europe was full of basically white people because time period. Just as like if you see Japan, boom, it will be filled with Japanese all the time. And if you self-insert a white male there, you might get some backlash because, well, it's historically inaccurate. But another big part of diversity on films, it's religion and the sexuality of people, sexual preferences. And that's a big issue on movies and TV because this era today, it's filled with a bunch of overly sensitive people who get mad over a lack of representation on films and TV series, when many times that is not needed. You see, if I wanted to see X or Y character on a TV series, I would watch it because, let's say that I wanted to see a Muslim girl, like I want to see Muslim representation. Well, then I would watch a TV series that actually has that because it's themed after that. Let's say you have a series that is based around a Muslim girl or boy who's living his life with being Muslim. Just an example. But I would watch a series because if I was watching that. But many times, stories that are regular stories that have nothing to do with any of that, they just suddenly spring out a character that you just only need the flag and it's perfect. And yes, I'm talking about the LGBT community because as a Christian myself, I obviously clash a lot with these beliefs because I will never support them because of my religion, and that's just how it is. And just like there are many religions that are against what I believe in. For example, there are some religions that don't eat pork, and but I do. Also, I don't eat anything that has still the blood on it. Mainly like I don't eat things that have the blood on it, and other people do. It's just a big group. And also, I've seen that in movies, they always depict religion as the bad guys for some reason. I know that in the past, religious groups have done terrible things. For example, the Catholics with the Inquisition, and obviously the Crusades, but also the Arabics did the jihads against the Christian people, the Catholic people, and so on. Many atrocities have been committed in the name of gods and deities because humanity is built around religion. It's just a core element of us being us. Even the United States, which mainly people are like ignoring, but hey, the United States was at first a colony founded to have religious freedom to finally uh, live their religion, and the country literally says, "In God we trust." On every hell, you see a dollar bill or anything, and what do you see? Like right here, "In God we trust," and oh my God, it doesn't even see. But yeah, even on the money of the United States, it says "In God we trust" because originally it was supposed to be a Christian or Catholic or whatever religion, whatever variant of the Christianity is on the United States. So obviously there will be clashes between religious groups and the other communities, and I really feel like I may not support the LGBT community, and I will never will, but I don't have anything against the people. I only have a problem when you force things into being. For example, I have a problem when I see like a zealot Christian on a TV series because I not many of us are like that. Sure, there are many Christians that are zealots and fanatics, but there's also Muslim fanatics, Buddhist fanatics. Why is that word so complicated? And you will also see members of the LGBT community who are overly zealot, and it's always a problem. Those two communities have a problem with each other. Now, it's a funny thing that I also seen in Christian people is that they obviously shun a lot of the sexual stuff, when actually the Bible has a very explicit book on it. Like whew, it talks about the female body because it's a man talking about his wife and saying how beautiful she is and how she means everything to him. And the book is quite explicit, I'm gonna tell you. Of course, it doesn't go like into over details, but it is quite explicit in what it's saying. And people actually are. Some Christians don't even want to read this book because of how sexual it is. And that's a funny thing I've noticed around, that many people are afraid to discuss it because, well, uh, Christianity is so has so many rules and ways of living. Now, I have talked about religions, sexual preferences, and races because those are the three major diversity elements on media. And I really wish that we could start ignoring if the cast is or it isn't diverse, because it really doesn't matter. What matters is doing great stories that help out to entertain us, and they spread messages of good messages, and they show us, they inspire us. Like, I want to see movies that inspire. I want to see series that when I end up watching, I'm like, damn, that was a good series. And stop worrying about if this certain group is gonna support me, because in reality, it shouldn't be about this. This is one of the main reasons of why I am working on my own story universe and working hard behind the scenes to make these characters a reality. And I myself have, I mean, I have the space version of it. I haven't really shown it, but there's a bunch of different aliens and other stuff here that I've been working so hard on. And superheroes as well, because I love superheroes, and this started as a superhero project, and now it's ended into a very multi-genre work, but I'm getting off track. I want to thank you everyone for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I think this video is going to be quite long. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think, because everybody can have their own opinion. If you agree with me or if you disagree, it's up to you, because we have the right to have our own opinions. Your opinion matters, my opinion matters, and we can all agree to disagree, or agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. Well, thank you all so much for watching. This has been ADD. This is my hair long. And I will see you on the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. And next time we shall see my favorite CG animated films, or 3D animated films. You will see what I'm talking about on the next episode of Adriel Talks. It's been ADG. See you on the next one. Goodbye.